Oscar-nominated screenwriter Josh Olson joins us today on the Focus Group.
They're all business, except when they're not. It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Focus Group. Tim Bennett here, as always, with my good friend and co-host, Mr. John T. Nash. Welcome aboard, Mr. Nash.
Welcome to the, as we slide towards Halloween. Oh, by the way, I meant to tell you, every fall and Halloween, we go and cannibalize, or we take as many as we can. Kit Kat used to do this dark chocolate special.
Yes.
Can't find it anywhere.
Well, I looked for it. It was funny. I was at the Walmart, and which is, a trip in itself. And I said, oh, and they had a huge candy aisle with all different types of Kit Kats. And I said, oh, Richard, so we're digging through trying to find dark chocolate Kit Kats, but they didn't have them. They had other flavors, but they didn't have didn't have the dark chocolate.
We think it's a victim of the price of chocolate in general. And I haven't seen him anywhere, and we were sorely disappointed because usually at the beginning of October, end of September, you could start finding them. But there you go, another victim of. I'm going to say it's a victim of tariffs and the cost of chocolate, right? Well, because they're directly related.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. You got to put the blame where the blame is, John. Don't let facts get in the way. Right?
And then, have you been watching this whole melodrama of a special election in, was it Arizona, I think, and
yes.
The woman, she won, she's a Democrat, and Mike Johnson refuses to seat her.
Right,
like
because they're going to release the pedophiles.
Because she's the last signature on the thing. So he keeps coming up with all these excuses like, well, we didn't do it before, or it's a normal thing. I mean, they've done it before with Republicans. They've sat them immediately. I'm just like, the brazenness of this is just so, it's almost like you can't even do anything about it. You just shake for a little bit and you're like, oh my God, like how many other ways can he twist himself into a pretzel? And the Attorney General of Arizona is now going to sue Mike Johnson because she's a duly elected rep. She has constituents and they're not seating her. So what?
These games, it was like when Comrade McConnell from Kentucky, when he was Speaker of the House, or leader of the Senate,
majority leader,
when he decided to ram through the Supreme Court justices or not.
McConnell rule of in elections close by,
In elections close by, you can't do it. So denied Obama putting a Supreme Court justice in, but then a month before,
Amy Coney Barrett,
slams one through. So it's the hypocrisy that gets everybody mad. I really do believe there should be term limits. But because I think that would help people actually make decisions that are thoughtful rather than political.
Than election-driven and donor-driven. And that's the other thing that's just bothering me lately is this idea of us versus them. Is we're all Americans. And an elected official is supposed to be representative of all their constituents, not just whatever party put him, over the top. But Trump's style of politics is you're with me or you're not with me. And if you're with me, you're going to get your way. George Santos getting a full pardon? Identity theft, stole from people, basically lied his way into an elected seat. And some, because how do you get a pardon? Because you're voting Republican and you're a friend of Trump, right? I mean.
Yeah. No, if you want to do anything, John, first change your party affiliation. And then if you want to do anything major and not get caught, just,
be a Republican.
Just suck up to them.
What did you think of that Santos thing when you heard about it?
Well, I thought he was doing it to try to distract from the No Kings rally.
Yeah.
Because it would, the whole thing about Trump, and I saw a pundit one time talk about this, but he's a TV celebrity, right? He was on The Apprentice. His whole thing is, I want to be in the news because if I'm not in the news, no one's talking about me. So he's constantly throwing shit out there to get himself in the news. So whatever it is, like the Hamas-Israeli ceasefire. How many ceasefires have the Israelis had in the last 50 years? Many.
Yeah.
But Trump Peacemaker Donald. First time in 3,000 years. All this nonsense. Well, of course, the ceasefire hasn't necessarily held.
Yeah.
But nobody wants to discuss that. But as he was going through this huge charade when he flew out to Egypt and talked to the Israelis, almost made it sound like there was a whole new day upon us. And I thought, the Arabs and Jews have been fighting for centuries. And if you think your little promise of rebuilding Gaza is going to stop that, you're sadly mistaken. And not that I don't believe it should stop. Not that I don't believe that the Palestinians have a right to live in peace like anyone else, globally. But he needs to be in the front and center on the front page, Nobel Peace Prize, and fighting with Ukraine. And I still don't know what 8 wars he solved. Do you? Can you name them?
The war on Christmas.
We
can say Merry Christmas again. I mean, I can't figure it out, right?
There was an open mic, I guess, at the UN where a few world leaders were talking, and they were laughing about it because they were all trying to come up with the number. What did he solve? Pulling countries out of Africa, he solved conflicts that have been going on for decades. Are you kidding me? What did he call up and say? Hey, this is Donald. Stop fighting. Okay, yes, thank you. Bye. I mean, I don't. Now, the scary part for me, though, as we delve into politics here, is what's going on in South America with Venezuela. Now he's gone after Colombia. Mm-hmm. And, of course, given billions of dollars to Argentina because they've elected a strong conservative. So we know there's a side deal, transactional side deal there. But what a mess. No, he's done so much damage. But a lot of people don't see it. I have friends on Facebook posting about, thank God for Donald Trump. He's not a king. You people are all left-wing lunatics, blah, 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 blah. I guess nobody saw January 6th on TV.
Oh, no, they saw it. They just bought into the reframing of it, which started within seconds of it happening. I mean, we all saw it. I watched the counting. I was like, oh, my God. That Officer Fantone, the now retired Capitol Police officer, he describes the day. He can describe it a million times. It was violent. It has never happened before. And, they were riled up by Rudy Giuliani, the Kraken. It was a stolen election, Chinese bamboo ballots, Italian satellites. I mean, do you remember the bullshit?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There was some Italian satellite that was changing votes.
Yeah.
In East Overshoe, Wisconsin. Yeah, no, it makes no sense. But that's what we're living with, unfortunately. I feel bad for us because as a country, as you said, we're all Americans, and we usually comported ourselves in a much more dignified way on the world stage.
Agreed.
And whether we've had a Republican or a Democrat president, usually when they left and on globally or the world stage, we were as one and spoke with one voice and were respected. And I just think that the shame of this is just his asinine behavior is just really tarnished brand America. So anyway, hey, how focus group works, or the focus group works, is we do some banter, as John and I just did, and then we will do a Caught My Eye segment and visit with our friends at Deep Discount. John's going to do a special edition of Pick That Flick today, because later on during Shop Talk, we've got a guest, Josh Olson, who was a screenwriter, Oscar-nominated screenwriter for A History of Violence, which is released today as part of their Criterion Collection. You can get it through Deep Discount. And then, of course, we have our business birthday segment. So without further ado, Mr. Nash, what caught your eye this week?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
What caught my eye apparently is an older story, because I did a little R&D on this, but it popped up as a recent story, and it has to do with rocker Rod Stewart. I had no idea that he was a model railroad fan. I mean, like, real fan of model railroads, where he has built an entire city, and like he has made switching yards and all this other stuff. And so the article was really this sort of retread. I think the incident took place in 2020, but this was recently reported in a British magazine. And it says, Rod Stewart sets up camera to keep an eye on his model railroad layout as it embarks on transatlantic journey. So he was in the U.S. for many years in Los Angeles, and he's going to return to England. And he had this massive model railroad. And if you've ever seen when people really do this, it's massive tables, and there's cities and buildings and track everywhere. And he was really puzzled about how he was going to get this from California to the UK. And but it was his wife and model, Penny Lancaster, who told a couple of different podcasts about this entire journey, that she suggested to him that he hire set dismantling or a film dismantling crew to package up and ship the train set back, or the entire room back to England. And so they set up some little cameras on the railroad board itself that could speak to the internet, and they basically had these people come in, and it's a handcrafted, huge. It takes up a whole room. It's handcrafted. The models are irreplaceable. He spent about 24 years putting this layout together, which is based on a wartime American city, complete with high-rise buildings and a warehouse section and hills and tunnels. And it takes up over 1,674 square feet. So think about this. It's 1,674 square feet. So the shipping must have been a thing. So they had these guys come in, movie set, they break things down, and they carefully segmented this train board, packaged it up. It made it successfully without any damage back to England. And there you go. So I was just kind of fascinated by this. First of all, let's say you have to have Rod Stewart's wealth to do this. Do you know many people who could afford to hire a set?
Well, most people, right? If you think a house is 1,500 square feet, I mean, this is a huge footprint, right?
Yes, it is.
This model train set. I'm surprised he had nothing. Maybe he does. I'm guessing he must have maintained a residence in the UK as well, right? Prior to LA?
Yeah, he had a home over there, yeah.
But I guess he didn't have his train set there, so I don't know. I see some of these things, and they're enormous. You see them on particularly now on social media, somebody that has one of these rooms with all these different trains and things. And I just can't, I immediately look at it and say, oh my God, the time it must have taken to put this together. And then the expense, right? This is not a cheap hobby.
I had a train board when I was a kid, and I built models and the houses and stuff like that. And I love trains and trolleys and all that stuff. But even as a kid, there was just so much I could do with the train board and watching it go around.
Wow.
That after, you know what I'm getting at? Like after a while, you build your models, you build the town, the whole bit, the coal gets dumped off. There was a car that would dump logs into and after, well, it just didn't hold the magic after a while. And I don't mean to like impugn model railroaders, because I think it's an amazing hobby. But for me, it's sort of, I did it and it's like, okay, I'm not going to build a 1,600 square foot.
No, but you're right. It's the fun of building it, or maybe if you're collecting a certain model of train or something. But you're right that it does. Then once you get it going and you set it and it goes around, woo woo, okay. But building the city and putting it together and that sort of thing, I think, is the fun of it. It's like building a car model. Yep. Or I'm sure you built models as a kid, and then it's fun building it. And then once you build it, you're like, okay, it's going to sit here.
Yeah, it's done. Yeah, it's like a puzzle. Yeah.
Take it apart. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, that's a good one. I would have never expected Rod Stewart to be a model railroad aficionado. Enthusiast.
There we go.
Yeah. I found this headline. I saw this headline and I laughed, and then I read it, and it maybe wasn't as funny as I anticipated, although it was something you and I missed on our cross-country tour, John. The Hair Museum. There's only one of them in the world. And so this hair museum, filled with century-old mementos, closes its doors, scattering contents around the nation. So this was in Independence, Missouri. So I looked on the trail that you and I, when we drove cross-country, to see if this was near where we were, particularly at Merrimack Caverns, which was in Missouri, which was our one stop after St. Louis. And this was not. This is up towards Kansas City, up further north in Missouri. So it wasn't on our route. But there's a museum there called Leila's Hair Museum, and it's been open for about 40 years. And it's filled with all kinds of locks of hair from the famous and not so famous. And this woman, Leila Cahoon, she just died last November, almost a year ago, at 92. And her granddaughter, Lindsay, now is trying to rehome this collection of over 3,000 pieces from the museum. And even the Metropolitan Museum of Art, John, is going to take a piece, if you can believe it or not. So I thought, well, so I initially thought, so what do you think's in the hair museum? What do you think's in the hair museum? Because this is what I was like, this is going to be funny.
Well, if you're watching on YouTube, Tim provided some pictures. First, there's the one picture of the sad front of the museum with no cars in the parking lot because it's closed. But then there's I think it might be Layla. But you say Leila?
So I watched a video and
she pronounces it. Oh, she says Leila. Okay,
Leila. Yeah.
So she's holding a oval frame with a portrait in the middle, and around the inside of the glass is a woman's ponytail that looks to be, I'm guessing, 2 feet long. And it's curled around the inside of this glass. It's things like this, like hair that was used for art, or literally just chopping someone's ponytail off. Is that what they?
Right. So in the 1800s, there was an art form of taking people's hair, and even morticians were involved. So this was in the mid 1800s. Women would coil their hair and make it into jewelry, or make it into art that they would frame. Okay. And they would do flowers, and then they would be give to a loved one or whatever. So they said that this was a huge thing in the 1800s up until about the 1940s. And people would take hair of the dead, or if somebody cut their ponytail, like you said, or whatever, and either make art out of it. They made flowers a lot of times. And so how this started is Leila, in 1956, she was a hairdresser, and she was shopping for Easter shoes. And she went inside an antique store, and she found a gold frame filled with strands of hair twisted into the shapes of flowers. And as the granddaughter and her grandfather said, she forgot about the shoes and decided that this was going to be her passion as being a hairdresser. And so they called it the most expensive piece in the museum, because it's the piece that she bought at this antique store that I think she's holding in that picture you have.
Yes, that's right.
Is what started her on her collection. And so over the years, she had written a book about this art of hair weaving, hair artwork, I guess,
Tim,
for lack of a better
what's
word.
that on your head? A wig.
A wig. So they would then start hunting. They would go on vacations. They would start looking at any antique store or whatever. And she said sometimes she'd find these pieces in a random antique store, and the people in the antique store would say, "Yes, I'll sell you the frame, but let me get rid of the hair that's in it." She's like, "No, I want the hair."
That's the whole purpose, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So they said the collection grew, and even had she has one collection there, which includes a wreath containing the hair from every woman in the League of Women Voters from Vermont in 1865. She's got hair from Ozzy Osbourne. Phyllis Diller donated her hair, and they've done stuff with it. Mike Rowe filmed a episode of his show, Somebody's Got to Do It, there. And apparently Ozzy Osbourne was quite a fan.
I could see that. There's a certain logic to that one being.
Yeah, she said when he was there in his last visit, she snipped a lock, and she was going to do something with it. Of course, he's dead, and now so is Leila. So they're trying to find the hair. So the kids. So I tried to do more research on this, and I just thought, why aren't they keeping the museum open? And essentially, then when the daughter was asked the question, her answer was, well, it was left to the grandchildren. We all have full-time jobs, and none of us wanted to quit our jobs to keep running the museum. And I think it's as you said, if you see the lot with the empty cars, I'm not so sure it was closed. It's just nobody was there.
So it looked like the barbed wire museum.
Exactly.
All we needed was a stray dog and a tumbleweed blowing by.
Well, remember, we went in, and then she turned the lights on.
Ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk. The lights
all of a sudden,
came on.
She lit everything on when we arrived. So, because I thought, well, this is a one-of-a-kind museum. I'm surprised they're not keeping it open. She has Michael Jackson's hair, Marilyn Monroe's hair. But apparently they've been in contact with over 3,000 museums across the country. I'm sorry, 40 different museums across the country to take these 3,000 pieces that he has. And they do have interest, and some people are taking some collections, some are taking individual pieces. She said some of it will be displayed at the Nelson Atkins Museum of Art which I don't know where that is, the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, and the National Museum of Women in Washington, D.C. So, piece of history, as I said, one of a kind. I just thought it was one of those, I guess, human interest stories of somebody having a passion and making it their life's work. So, good for Leila Cahoon. Or
Leila. If you said Lee Iacocca, I'd still be like, okay.
Yeah. So, hey, as many of you know, Deep Discount's a partner of ours here on the Focus Group, and later on in Shop Talk, we're going to speak with Josh Olson, and I'll let John tell you a little bit more about him because he's part of the new release this week, and a game we're going to be doing with his movie. So, Mr. Nash.
Indeed. So thank you to Deep Discount for being a partner here on the Focus Group. You could go to their site by going to ours, focusgroupradio.com, click on the Deep Discount logo. Start your shopping experience. You could shop by, anything. You could shop by director, by category, by genre, etc. And this week, they're running a sale called Movies Based on TV Shows Based on Movies. They could do a sale one day, like movies and TV shows based on Broadway plays. It would come up a lot? Annie. It's a Hard Knock Life. Every kid's high school does Annie as a musical. But this week, we have a new release, and it's called A History of Violence. This was released in 2005. It's a film by David Cronenberg. It's on the Criterion Collection, which means it's the gold standard. It's 4K Ultra HD. And this is a multi-award-winning movie. Some have called it one of the definitive movies of the 2000s. And here I'll read the description. In David Cronenberg's subtly provocative film, one of his most celebrated, all is not as it initially seems. In his first of many collaborations with the director Viggo Mortensen, who also, you might remember, was in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, delivers a highly nuanced, also in Green Book, performance as Tom Stahl, a small-town husband and father who is hailed as a hero when he kills the would-be perpetrators of a violent robbery. But how did this ordinary family man dispatch them with such skill? Working with an exceptional cast that also includes Maria Bello, Ed Harris, and William Hurt, Cronenberg slyly deconstructs the mythos of the American action hero, posing elemental questions about identity, human nature, and the violence that we both abhor and can't look away from. It's a really interesting movie. It's a very layered film, and as Tim mentioned, our Shop Talk segment this week, we have the pleasure of interviewing Josh Olson, who is the screenwriter for the movie. Also an Academy Award nominated screenplay. Interesting conversation. And in honor of this, Criterion has given us a couple of copies of A History of Violence to give away. And so in honor of that, we're going to play a little micro Pick That Flick. I'm going to play the game from last month. I'm going to play a clue to a movie. If you know the movie it came from, drop us a line at letters@focusgroupradio.com, letters@focusgroupradio.com. And if you're one of the first, I think 4 or 5, I have to check the number of discs we have, but if you force 4 or 5 people to enter, you're going to win a copy of a movie. So I'm going to play the clue right now.
I gather we not only did her hair, but dressed her. What a couple of queens we are, Colin.
All right. Tim, we usually do this twice, right?
Yeah, I don't think I know this one either.
All right. Let me do it again.
I gather we not only did her hair, but dressed her. What a couple of queens we are, Colin.
I would like to say that Bob had... I had picked something different, and Bob's like, no, you know the spirit of the game. It's supposed to be funny. It's supposed to be a great line. Let's just say that this is
Thanks, Bob.
John says, Bob, pick that flick, and Bob cajoles until he gets the flick that he wants. Anyway, if you know the name of the movie that audio clip came from, letters@focusgroupradio.com. A big thanks to Criterion Collection for providing us copies of A History of Violence, an amazing movie. I think if you don't win one, you should pick up a copy. It's a really well-done, layered drama, excellent acting, amazing directing. And with that, we are going to take a super quick break. When we come back, we have our business birthday and, of course, our conversation with Josh Olson. So stay with us.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com. Now back to the focus group with Tim and John. Available pretty much everywhere.
Hello and welcome back to the focus group. Tim Bennett here, as always, with my good friend and co-host, Mr. John T. Nash. We've got our business birthday today.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the focus group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
So celebrating today, October 22nd, he was born October 22nd, 1897, is Ettore Boiardi. He died at the age of 87 in 1985. Also known in the United States as Hector Boiardi, an Italian-American chef and entrepreneur, famous for the brand of foods known as Chef Boyardee. So born in Italy, at the age of 11, started cooking. He was an apprentice in a restaurant in Italy. At age 16, arrived at Ellis Island on a French ship, came from Italy on a French ship to work with his great uncle. And he started working at a number of upscale Manhattan restaurants, including the Claridge, Ritz-Carlton, and the Ritz-Carlton hotels. He then worked at the Plaza and got his big break when he had served and supervised the preparation of a homecoming meal served by Woodrow Wilson at the White House for 2,000 returning World War I soldiers. So he, as he was working around New York, he decided he wanted to go to another locale. And in 1917, he moved to Cleveland. Now, his name is spelled in Italian, B-O-I-A-R-D, Boyardee. And so this
Tim,
plays...
So they literally did a phonetic version of his name, right? A friendlier phonetic version.
He decided to. So
Okay.
and we'll see as he progresses. But so he went from Ettore, E-T-T-O-R-A, or E-T-T-O-R-E, Ettore Boiardi, to Hector Boyardee. So it's but it's as so many people went to Ellis Island and got names changed. They didn't change his, but he changed it later on when he got married. So he had opened a restaurant in Cleveland, and of course the only cooking he said he knew how. So when he was working with these other restaurants in Manhattan, he would obviously cook what they were known for and learn certain things. But he really was well schooled in Italian, particularly Italian cuisine, particularly spaghetti dinners, ravioli, meatballs, sauce, that sort of thing. So in 1924, he left the restaurant he was working for in Cleveland and decided to open up his own Italian restaurant. And his wife convinced him that he should go out on his own, so that's what he did. And at this Italian restaurant, people would often come in with empty milk bottles and ask him for the sauce that they were having. And
that's classic. Okay.
So Italian cuisine wasn't that popular in the U.S. then. So he would, for free, he'd fill up these milk bottles. And then it got to the point where his wife said, you should start selling this because so many people are coming and asking for it. So it happened that there was a local grocery store chain and also the A&P caught on to this, and they convinced him to start processing this and making this stuff for wholesale and selling it in the grocery stores. So he got distribution throughout a number of wholesale partners and started selling his spaghetti sauce and opened a factory in 1928 to meet the demand. So what you would get in the stores, you would get a bottle of his sauce, and then in just shrink wrap or plastic wrap, like a saran wrap thing, they would put spaghetti and some Parmesan cheese. And so you would buy this as a kit. And so it really was way before people were selling food kits or whatever. He'd sell this as a kit. And at the time, he became the number one importer of Italian Parmesan cheese and olive oil into the United States, also the largest grower of mushrooms in the United States. So he moved production to Milton, Pennsylvania, which it is still there now. At its height, they were doing 20,000 tons of tomatoes in 1938.
I wonder how many trucks that looks like. 20,000 tons.
He was the top-selling Italian food product in the U.S., and so, but he realized it was difficult to brand the product. Nobody could pronounce Boyardee the way it was spelled, B-O-I-A-R-D. So they just did Boy,
R-D
with the hyphens. So that's became his name, and they said it was so non-Italians could manage the pronunciation, and including his own sales force. They said his own sales force out selling this stuff had problems. He was given a proclamation by the U.S. because during World War II, he was awarded the Gold Star because he provided all the troops with food. It was good. It was easy food on the, of course, out in the battlefield. And he struggled with cash flow with the family, so they ended up selling, if you can believe this, he and his brother sold Chef Boyardee for $6 million to American Home Foods. And those people at the time handled like Bumblebee and Pam, Easy Off, Preparation H, whatever. But he continued working in restaurants in Cleveland up until he died. They said he was always perfecting things and coming up with new ideas. One of the big successes, they said, for his products was because they used TV for the first time, starting to promote the brand and get the name out. Again, they said Italian food products at the time were not all that popular at that time in the U.S. He died at 87 in a nursing home in Parma, Ohio. And one funny story, and so now Chef Boyardee has been sold many times. Now it's part of ConAgra, which is an $11 billion company. But one of the funny stories, side stories, was they turned down a product placement in Seinfeld. Now, are you familiar with Seinfeld?
No.
With many of the shows, as you would be. So they talked about Junior Mints and some of the other things Seinfeld would have in there. I think they had Twix bars were in there, Kit Kat, all these sort of things. So they had written in the famous, and one of my favorite episodes, the Marble Rye, where Kramer goes to the big box
bakery,
discount, like a Costco, and gets beefarino. And he buys these huge cans of beefarino to feed the horse. Remember, he's going to he's going to be take the horse around.
That was supposed to be Chef Boyardee?
And it was written in as Chef Boyardee. It was the Chef Boyardee beefaroni, which is what's Chef Boyardee. And so in that episode when they God, I'm forgetting their names, but it was George's in-laws are on the horse, and Kramer feeds them the stuff, and then the horse starts passing gas.
And they're in the and they're in the carriage behind the horse.
In the carriage behind him, the horse.
It's a horse-drawn carriage, yeah.
And I forget the parents. I forget their names, and I should know it. But one of my favorite episodes. So it was written, and they gave it to Chef Boyardee. They were all excited about it, and they thought it was in bad taste. So last minute, they changed it from beefaroni to beefarino. And so there was no product placement. But in retrospect, they probably should have done it. They thought it was in bad taste. Would you have gone with it?
I'd have done it because it's a big popular TV show, and it would have lived on forever, right? Product placement. You're in the show.
The Rosses. That was their name. The Rosses.
The Rosses.
It was. He was, and George was getting him out of the house so he could replace the Marble Rye, and so Kramer's going to take him on a carriage ride, and the horse gets gassy from the beefarino, which was supposed to be beefaroni. But anyway, so that's happy birthday to Chef Boyardee.
Excellent business birthday. Excellent business birthday.
Sold it for $6 million. So without, as promised, we're going to head into our shop talk segment. We're going to head into our shop talk segment, tongue-tied, and talk to Oscar-nominated screenwriter Josh Olson. So as promised, it's time for our Shop Talk segment. We have joining us Josh Olson, who's an American Oscar-nominated screenwriter and podcaster, known for writing the 2005 film A History of Violence. The film's been described as one of the greatest films of the 2000s and has been named on various greatest of all-time lists. You can find A History of Violence right now at deep discount. It's just been released as part of the Criterion Collection. Josh, welcome to the Focus Group. He's holding up the film. Mox.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Sure. So for those who don't know, A History of Violence began as a graphic novel, and John and I, before the interview, had a lot of questions about how the film came about, whether you wrote this on spec, or was this a favorite graphic novel of yours, or did a studio contact you? How did the film come about?
Well, I don't want to spoil too much because there's actually a great interview. There's about an hour, 45-minute long video interview with me conducted by my friend Tom Bernardo, who's the head writer on Bosch, and we talk a lot about that. But the shortest version possible is, it was a studio assignment. They were looking for a writer for it, and they were just meeting with a bunch of writers, and I had just broken into the studio system, and it ended up being the very first job I got as a studio writer. I've been writing a lot of straight to video stuff before that.
So Josh, though, you knew the novel. You knew the novel well. You liked it.
Yeah, I had been. I had read it a long time ago. I had been intrigued by the title and the concept because I thought it was a great title and a great concept. And one of the executives at New Line, Cale Boyder, was the guy who brought me into pitch. Knew I had read it, and honestly, I was not. I was disappointed in the book because it didn't do what I had kind of wanted it to do. I felt like it had a really great premise that it didn't quite do as much with as could be done, and sort of didn't think about it again. But when the opportunity came up to go in and pitch, I was basically told I'm not getting the job. It's just like you're new in town essentially as a studio guy, and I want my guys at the studio to get to know you. So come on in. We're talking to a handful of A-list writers who are all close friends with the head of the studio. You're not getting the job. So come on in and just, dazzle them. They're just there mostly to like kind of get to know you, but, pitch. But which gave me I was like, oh, okay, so it doesn't matter what I pitch. So I pitched the version of the story that I would have written had I been brilliant enough to come up with the title and the premise. And it turned out that they had some, I guess, similar issues with the book. And the other people they were meeting with were basically doing sort of straight up adaptations, and I was the one who was kind of taking it into a whole different direction. So I sort of fell into it. And it was a really valuable lesson, as a writer going out for a job. You can only second guess the people you're meeting with so much.
Oh, true.
And honesty is the best policy. Just go in and be yourself, do yourself. Go like, this is the version I want to see. I can't try to, figure out what you guys want, and it'll go your way or it won't. But if you do the wrong thing, if you go in and pitch something you don't believe in, and then you end up somehow getting the job, you're really screwed then, because, what if you can't write that,
Josh, to follow up on, so there's a lot of luck, it sounds like. There's also a lot of I love the theme of being yourself. Tim has looked at some interviews you've done talking about this idea of being authentic, pitching what it's coming from the heart. But when a director is assigned or picks up the script and talent is assigned to it, did you actually think about rewriting at all or adapting your screenplay to deal with Ed Harris, William Hurt,
Oh yeah, no,
Viggo
we did.
Mortensen?
We did. There was another draft. Basically, what happened is the one draft was written. The studio liked it, and they started going out looking for a director. And David at the time had just done a movie called Spider with Ray Fiennes, which is a great film. It is nobody's idea. I guarantee you. I don't think I've ever discussed it with him. I don't need to discuss it with him. Nobody went into making Spider going, this is the one. This is the one that will set me for life financially. This is my Star Wars. It's about a babbling schizophrenic walking around the worst parts of London talking to himself. And David had, they had scraped together the money for that. And I don't know if anybody got paid or they all got paid scale or something. So he wanted to get back into, I think he wanted to actually get paid to make a movie again. And I think he wanted to kind of get back in that game, because David has a ton of personal projects, many of which he made after this. And, the idea of going in and doing a studio film that did well would be very helpful for that. So he had just told his agents, bring me scripts. And we had just gone out to directors, the studio had. And so they came to him with the script for History, and he loved it. And came to L.A. to meet with them to stump for the job. And it was an interesting experience because, I remember, I talk about this in the interview, I will never forget know exactly where I was when I got the news that David Cronenberg wanted to direct my script. And then the double whammy of like, but he's probably not going to get the job. And you're going...
Which is just like you being told you could come in and pitch, but you're not going to get the job.
Yeah, actually, yeah, kind of, and because all they were looking at it, and look, this is their job. They know who he was. Nobody's sitting there thinking like this is some nobody, but they're kind of going, oh well, his last movie made $1 million, and and you're like, yeah, which is pretty good considering what it was. Nobody thought they were going to get Rich House Spider, and just I had a relationship with the people at the studio, so they were kind of telling me how the process was going and all the various people who were coming in to meet and what they were saying and what they were doing. And I had a relationship unbeknownst to them. I knew a woman who was, I think she was like the number 2 agent handling David. And I would call her up on the QT and sort of pass along all the intel I had gathered from the studio. Because I was like, if there's anything I can do to help make this happen. And... so I'd just be sitting there going, wow, gosh, really? He came in and, I love that guy. Yeah, he's wonderful. I'd call him and go, they just met with John Nash. Okay, here's the thing. They really hate his last movie, but they think maybe there's a chance, blah, 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 blah. And she would use that information as needed. And then to their credit, finally, one of the things they did was they were like, well, let's watch Spider. That's the great thing about New Line is they're still, they're a little down and dirty and they actually care about movies. And they watched the film and it was like, oh, shit. He still got it. The old man's still an artist with a Thompson, and that was it. So then he got hired, and then he and I sat down and went through the script page by page and talked about it. And then I did another draft, and that was basically what got shot. And in the middle of that, trying to think, I think Ed. Yeah, I think Viggo came on in the middle of that. I don't think I found out about the others until after I finished the draft.
And he's the lead.
Yeah. Well, so we had another lead, and God, statute of limitations has got to be up. It was Nicolas Cage, who I absolutely love. He was one of the great actors of my generation, and is one of my favorite actors. And I would kill to work with him, and not the right guy for this project, I thought, primarily because the instant you see Nicolas Cage, you know for a fact he killed guys for the mob.
Yes.
When he goes, I never killed guys for the mob, you're like, dude, you're the greatest actor alive. I don't know that you could pull that off. But again, it would have been fine. And then what happened is his, I can't remember, what was the Lord of War? Is that it? He had a previous commitment to another film. And so he had to go do that, and history was basically green lit. So the ball was rolling, and in the middle of that, they brought in Viggo, which was truly incredible. Because when I was writing it, Viggo was one of the 2 actors I had in my head while I was writing it. Because
that was going to be one of our questions.
Yeah, he had been in a phenomenal Sean Penn movie. Sean Penn, by the way, was the other guy I had in my mind. But he'd been in a Sean Penn movie called Indian Runner. Mm-hmm. And he's phenomenal in it. And that was the movie that really put Viggo on my map. I mean, I'd seen him and stuff before. You're like, oh, that guy. But Indian Runner was the one where I was like, this guy's phenomenal. And then Lord of the Rings had come out, and now he was like essentially a movie star. So it was sort of like double whammy, timed out perfectly. Viggo read the script, hated it. And he had, it's funny, man, time goes by. I've heard him, the story seems to have changed. But on the day, because I remember David going off to meet with him for breakfast when we were in the middle of working. And Viggo had big problems with the third act. And the third act of the thing was different only insofar as there was a lot more action. There was sort of the assault on the house.
Also, Josh, the movie is sort of like a nested Russian doll in a way. Mm-hmm. The identity of the main character is switched to the viewer as time goes on, because you question whether he had the ability to kill someone as easily as he did, and how did that skill arrive. And then Ed Harris arrives and says, hey, I know who you are, and you belong. Hey, and he uses a different name. So his acting ability to hold all that secret identity in, by third act, he's actually acting on his previous identity.
Yeah. Yeah, and it just, as written, the sort of big change in intent was in the first draft, he goes to visit the William Hurt character with the express purpose of killing him.
Who
and
plays
everybody
his
in the
brother,
house.
by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in so there was all this kind of like him parked in a truck down the street from the house, kind of like loading up for bear with weapons and everything. There's a world's greatest dad coffee mug. And then there's all this action, which is the worst stuff to have to write, because anytime you're writing an action scene, you know for a fact that by the time it ends up on camera, it's going to be so radically different, because you don't know what the sets look like, and then the stunt coordinator is going to come in and go, it'd be great if somebody dropped through that window, and blah, 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 blah. So it just feels moronic. I always hate it. I have people I know who used to write softcore porn, and they would write "sex goes here," and I was like, why can't we do that? Why can't we just go shootout goes here, James Bond survives, Dr. No dies, go nuts? Because no one's reading the script. No one's going, wait, on page 87 it says he shoots 2 guys and you've got 3. No one does that. It's ridiculous.
So Josh, it's been almost 20 years since it was released. And so what do you hear most often from fans of the film? Do they have is there one particular thing you hear most often about the film from fans?
Yeah, I'll tell you my favorite. The funny thing is, over time you sort of find out who the fan base is, and the people who responded the strongest to it over time as groups. There's 2 of them. One is kind of gangster rappers, and the other is sweet white-haired little old ladies. And I am not kidding you.
Those are 2 very different buckets of people. Okay?
It's very much so, yeah. And the film didn't initially do that well with women, and clearly the title, even though there's 2 minutes of violence in it, the title can be. I've always said we should have called it A History of Cuddling. And because women see the film,
the title is perfect because it taps into the tension throughout the entire film. Yeah,
but it also is alienating to half the audience. And but the thing that I take a lot of pride in is the fact is that for the most part, when women finally do see the film, they're like, "Oh my God, I loved it." My favorite all-time encounter, and I hope I don't think I told this on the disc or not, but running into a friend of mine at the airport, and he's there with his mother, who looks like somebody's grandmother from Central Casting, and introduces me and says, "My friend Josh wrote the movie. Do you know the movie History of Violence?" She goes, "Oh, I love that movie." And he goes, "Oh, well, Josh wrote it." And she looks at me and she goes, "The staircase scene." And my friend just turns as red as any human being has ever turned in his life as his mother talks about the...
And she knew it.
If you were going to write did you ever look back at work overall and with a different eye, or if you were to write this movie now, would there be a different way? I know the film industry is in upheaval, but could you do it now, or how would it change? Or would
I don't. I mean, certainly how I would write it. I like to think I'd write it a little bit better, perhaps, but not. I mean, I'm really proud of that script. It came out so much like what I had kind of pitched to them initially, right down to that ending, which I never thought they'd let us keep. And it spoke to me on some kind of primal level, and it was like, here's what the story needs to be. And I look at it now, and I can't. I've seen a ton of things I've worked on where you're like, oh, I should have done this, or they should have done this, or I screwed it up, or they screwed it up, and I look at this and I'm like literally nothing. If I have one small gripe with the film at all, and it's hilarious because nobody ever has a problem with this, and I'm the only one. It's also funny because like Viggo's issue was like the violence in the third act he thought was too much, and is they trained him with. I think it's like, was it Krav Maga? Is that the with this expert in this, this Israeli martial arts thing, so that when he get into the fights, he can do that stuff. And I was like, he's not a Steven Seagal character. He was never a Steven Seagal character. He was like, essentially in my head, he was basically Robert De Niro in Mean Streets. He's just a guy who was a little bit nuts and had no aversion whatsoever to committing violence and killing people. But at no point was he this kind of like action star. And I still to this day, I'm waiting for someone to see the movie and like, you've done all this work laying out who he was in the past. You're like, why is that guy why does he know all these crazy martial arts? Those guys are just meatheads, It's like they're Paulie Walnuts on The Sopranos isn't, going around dressed up like Bruce Lee and in Game of Death and, doing these amazing moves. He's just hitting people in the head with a club. that would be it. That would probably be the only thing.
You mentioned the final scene. Was that your idea, or because it seemed to leave people with a lot of questions, right? And so
yeah, that's from
your idea? Was that the
we show my
studio?
beat sheet. We show my pitch beat sheet in the interview. It was pretty amazing. It was very brief, and from the very beginning, I was like, I wanted to go out on that ending, and I was amazed when I got the job. And they give you their notes. They're like, here's, we loved your pitch. They had a couple things they wanted to change, a couple things they wanted to add here or there, whatever. And I kept waiting for someone to go and you got to come up with a different ending. And they never said anything. And then I wrote it into the first draft and nobody ever said anything. And then we wrote it in the last draft and nobody ever said anything. And then they let us film it. And I was like, I guess we got away with that. But it always felt like there was going to be this pressure to be, give it a happy ending or kill him in the end or something, and it never came. So
no, the ambiguity, is that the term I would use? There's a bit of ambiguity.
Sure.
It's almost like the last episode of The Sopranos where it goes black and you're like, okay, what continued? What happened? What were the emotions?
I have to say this. I haven't 100% confirmed it, but I've heard from two different people now who are involved with The Sopranos that it was an inspiration for that, and that blows my friggin' mind.
Almost like it was like, okay, it happened by accident. Yeah.
You're like, I'm out. That's it.
Yeah, that's the greatest thing ever. It was the greatest thing ever. And I remember, I love endings like that. I love those kind of stories over, boom, get out. And I remember watching, and there's somehow in most films when they do that in TV shows, I can feel it coming in a way. And I felt it coming in The Sopranos. I was like, oh my God, are they gonna shoot him in the head and cut to black? Or are they just gonna cut to black? And the thing went black, and I remember everybody in the room I'm watching it with goes, what the hell? And I'm the one guy sitting there going, yes!
Yeah.
I love endings like that. And I'm so proud of our ending because it's art's a conversation with an audience. It's not a thing you do on your own. It's a thing that you put out in the world, and now it becomes something larger as people engage with it. And and for just pure mercenary reasons, leaving a movie with questions ensures that people will be talking about it as they walk out of the theater. And if you can
at the very least, but they're going to be thinking about it.
Right.
And I feel that way about a lot of my favorites. There's a doubt. There's a question mark. Is the character did they really transform through the hero's journey? Have they really, and I like that because that's life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Doubt.
Well, it's so much fun too, because you get to engage with, now the work's done, the movie's out there, and you get to engage with an audience. You get to watch them enjoy it and feel it. And then, I get to do a lot of Q&As still. And I will never forget, there's a guy came up to me at a screening, and he seemed very anxious. And he was like, I need to know, like, is he a good man now? I know he did bad things in the past. Is he a good man? And I'm like, well, I don't know. That's kind of up to you. He's like, no, but what do you think? Is he a good man? And I see this woman standing about 10 feet back who's clearly sort of like keyed in on him. And she looks a little sort of annoyed. And I looked and I said, is that your wife? And he goes, yeah, it's my wife. I said, I think this is a conversation you need to have with her.
Wow. Yeah. Especially knowing the ending. Yeah. Hey, Josh, we're going to have to leave it there. I'm terribly sorry about that. Time is a terrible thief. But we've been talking to Josh Olson, who's the screenwriter for the amazing, let's see here, A History of Violence, a film that came out in 2005. Wikipedia claims it might have been one of the last films ever released on VHS by Hollywood before they went total DVD. The last
film released on VHS.
But do not let that deter you from the fact that it has an amazing cast. It has won all sorts of awards. It is a really beautiful, intense watch. I'll leave it at that. So Criterion is releasing it. You get it on deep discount. Josh, I want to thank you for being a guest. We could do this for 5 hours. You have a podcast that you talk a lot on, so you're used to this. But thank you so much for joining us here on the Focus Group.
Thank you for having me.
A big thanks to Josh Olson for joining us today on the Focus Group. Loved the conversation we had with him. And thank you to Criterion for providing copies of A History of Violence, the movie that Josh did the screenplay for. Interesting history of how that goes from a pitch to the next level, and they're shooting the film. We want to remind you to don't text and drive, arrive alive. And that's about it. We're going to see you next week here on the Focus Group.
It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.